Hey, welcome back to day 41 of Project Me. I say this every time, but it's been quite a bit since the last video, and truthfully, it's not something I've just been avoiding. It's more that it's just, oh, what do I talk about? There hasn't been that many issues to really speak about and reflect on, which is, in a way, is a good thing, right? So I can't complain too much about that. What issues have come up are generally things I've already talked about, so I haven't felt the need to make another video self-reflecting on them. Although maybe I should have, but I don't feel like I would have accomplished that much good. So here I am. I finally got enough of a problem, I suppose, that's substantial enough to pop in a video. But anyway, so real quick, let's do some rapid fire gratitude. So firstly, thankful to my mate, my best mate M, brilliant guy. Just really grateful to have him in my life. I frankly, if I didn't have him, I don't know what I do with myself. Just a tremendous guy, so inspiring in so many ways. Secondly, grateful to my friend A. He's another friend of me and M's. Just he's it's hard to describe him. I've never met anyone quite like him, and I say that in the most flattering way possible because a lot of people have patterns, that make them very similar to other people in certain respects. Not everyone's their own person, but of course they might behave similarly to other people. But A is just so unique in everything. I mean, he truly is, very much so one of the most unique people I've ever met, and he's just such a curious guy. In the best way possible. He's very intelligent and very humble as well. Just privileged to know him and spend time with him quite a bit, which is awesome. And thirdly, grateful to, I'm going to package them together because in a way they're like the dynamic duo. J and Q. They're two friends of mine, and oh god, they're just so funny. I don't even know where to begin describing them. Q holds a very special place in my heart. She's such a wonderful person. So is Jay, but I just know Q a little bit better, which is why I'm saying that. But Jay just makes me laugh all the time. She's got great comedic timing, and she doesn't realize it. And she's always coming up. Well, they're true, I imagine. Coming up with these bizarrely horrifying and atrocious stories about her life, and she manages to pull out some of the worst moments of her life and make them funny for the rest of us, and that's not lost to me. But yeah. Anyways, just grateful to have those four people in my life. Anyways, let's get right into the big issue. Well, some of the smaller issues actually that I've been grappling with recently, mainly getting up on time for what I want to do. I mean, I'm not running to class late, but I'm a little bit pressed for time. Part of the problem is because I've been going to the gym every morning after I wake up, which takes away a lot of the time I would otherwise have in the mornings to get to my classes. So now I'm spending an hour and a half at the gym and showering, and then an extra 25 minutes making breakfast and all that after. So that's sucking up quite a bit of time, and sometimes it's just hard to get out of bed. I don't feel like, and this is something I'll expand on in a few minutes, but I don't feel like I have a raison d'être, which is in French is a French term, and in English it means a reason for being. It could translate into being a life's purpose, a dream to push for, just sort of meaning of your life. That's what that phrase means. And I feel like that's quite an integral thing of being able to get out of bed every morning. When you have that reason to, then it makes it easier. Life takes on a different meaning for you. And yeah, I don't feel like I can expand on that much more without laboring on the point. So yes, that's one thing, getting out of bed early. I mean, I'm not doing badly by any means, but I could always be doing better, and I'm not. So that's something to look out for. I have actually, and this is a good thing, this is part of the self-reflection, I have actually just finished my last day of uni work in the first trimester. Sorry, let me rephrase it because that's a little bit misleading. Our trimester is divided in two. We have a 2-week break in the middle of the trimester. So we have week 1 through 6, 2 weeks of break, weeks 7 through 12, and then exams. So I've just had the last day of week 6, which means I'm now beginning a 2-week break, which is so good because 1, I could really use the break. 2, I can use this break to reset my sleep schedule for good, hopefully, and start getting up early in the morning, going to bed earlier, which would be ideal. And thirdly, as part of my first reason, I can just finally sit back and relax for a little bit, because in the past, every break I've had like this, I've always had to do work, and it's still true here, but the work I have to do is a lot less pressing than it's been in the past. So now I finally have a chance to kind of just, I can afford to spend this weekend not doing anything, which I need you to know, that is an incredible thing for me, because I work 7 days a week. I don't give myself any time off. If I do have time off and I do nothing, I feel guilty, so I start doing work again. And it's unhealthy, it's unsustainable, but I don't know how to move on from it. And now I finally have a reason not to do anything, because I can afford. It means I can know in my mind that I don't have to do it, which is great. So I'm going to spend this weekend doing absolutely nothing, and then crack onto some of the grind next week, but I can take it a lot slower than I do as well. So maybe 2 or 3 hour increments a day, which is fantastic. So I'm going to have such a good time off a break, I hope. But in any case, the second problem the little problem I want to talk about was that talking as well, speaking speed, cadence, that is something that I often struggle with, because it's fun in these videos because I'm not being pressured to speak quickly. But in social settings, when I go out, for example, if I get excited, which is a normal thing to do, and I don't want to disparage myself for that, but even in times when I'm not getting excited, my rate of speaking speeds up really quickly, and I try to get things out before someone can interrupt me. And in the process of doing that, I mess up the grammar of the sentence. I say words that don't actually make sense in the sentence, and I just speak in an otherwise ineloquent way. I'm not able to get my point across effectively when talking. And that's a problem for obvious reasons. 1, it makes me feel terrible because I'm not communicating the way I hope to communicate. And 2, it makes me feel like an absolute fool because of the mistakes. I don't know if you heard that. That was my flatmate. But yes, that's the real problems I've been grappling with for a while now. But the big thing has been some existential questions that have been weighing on me recently. And it's something that's troubled me quite a bit, because I've known for a long time now that going through life, I have to find a way to get peace in it. And the question is, I don't know how to find my peace, which is unsettling for a lot of reasons. But I'll just take you through my thought process real quick. So firstly, you okay?
Yeah, I dropped my phone again.
Oh no. I hope it's not cracked. Where was I? Oh yeah, so take you through my thought process. So, where to begin? So I want to go into a career of public servitude. So being a public servant, a bureaucrat, if you will, God forbid. And I know if I want a satisfying life, it comes down to generally 2 things, in my view. A life of meaning or a life of happiness. And the problem is, I don't think that they're synonymous. I don't think they're attached together, nor do I think that they're mutually exclusive. You can only have one without the other. I think, like all things, you need a balance. And I'm afraid to choose either one of them. 1, because you need a balance, like I said, and 2, because if I choose one, then I feel like I'll end up living my life in the shadow of the other. Like if I choose happiness, I'll always spend my life wondering, well, what if I could have done a life of meaning? What if I could have done something of value to people? And vice versa, with choosing a life of meaning and not of happiness. So again, the answer that emerges for kind of reconciling a life of meaning and a life of happiness is one of balance. But how do I achieve that balance? And that's really what's kind of been getting me, because in public servitude, for example, the reason I want to go into public servitude is to make people's lives better, right? That's sort of the function of government in a way. But I'm also, so that's a life of meaning, but I'm not naive enough to think that if I do them good, that people will appreciate what I've done for them, right? That's just one, not how human nature works, and two, you can't make everyone happy. But that said, I know that I'm going to try and want to make people happy, because that's sort of what comes with a life of meaning. I need, for a life of meaning, I need to make people's lives better. And the best way of gauging whether their lives are better is whether they're happy with their lives. But if they're not happy, then it feels like I failed that life of meaning. And so therefore I'm not happy, you know? And so I feel like I'm going to be perishing in the pursuit of the great impossible, as Nietzsche put it. So therein lies the impossibility of a life of meaning. I cannot find meaning in public servitude if the very people that I serve cannot find my service beneficial. Neither can I find happiness in it. And if the people I serve do not feel the fruits of my labour, then why should I be happy? Because my noble quest would have failed, right? Do you understand what I'm getting at? And I suppose some of you are probably wondering, well, can't you find meaning or happiness through your work, despite what other people think? And simply put, the answer is yes and no. Yes, but that if that were to be the case, it's a very subjective thing. It has to come from within. And I know that right now, at least, I'm not in a position mentally and to think like that. I'm not in a position to think that it's my work that matters. It's how much effort I know I'm putting in that matters for my happiness. It's something I hope I will develop over time, the ability to draw my own happiness from myself, but it's something I don't have right now. And so I can't proceed through life assuming I'm going to develop that assumption, right? So I don't want to rely on that. Because, again, until experience uproots my objectivity right now, I can't create these fulfilling ideas of satisfaction through myself out of nothing. My fixation is on the here and now, right? And besides, finding my own meaning or happiness in my work also kind of goes against the nature of public servitude, because my duty as a public servant is exclusively to the public. So that's not to say I can't find my own meaning or happiness in this work. You know, it might often align, but it comes second to those of the people I'm trying to serve, right? And again, I recognize that there are some flaws in that logic, but that's simply the way I see things right now, and I'm trying to see things differently, but it's quite hard. But again, so how do I reconcile that life of meaning, a life of happiness, and a life of public servitude? And because a life of public servitude is what I want, that question of how I balance all these things is going to shape my life. And even now I feel like I'm trembling under the weight. It's really plagued me these last couple of weeks. And so because I can't find that balance, I sort of shifted the question to something else. Now it's, what do I want? You know, personally, what do I want? To hell with the people I might serve. What do I want? Trying to achieve that subjective point of view. And I asked myself that question a few days ago, and I realize now that it was never about happiness or meaning. And to quote Charles Bukowski, the poet, it was only for a little bit less pain, really. It's about finding peace, you know, solace in life's imperfections and refuge in its suffering. So now the question evolves into something I suspect we've all been asking ourselves every waking moment of our lives. How do I find peace? In myself, in my environment, and in the world? How do I find peace? And I, for one, am convinced that peace is in being understood, or at least feeling understood. And so how do you feel understood? Connection with people, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be people. It could be nature, for example. And like I said, we all get this in different ways. You know, the hermit from silence, the soldier from his sword, the musician from his instruments, the poet from words, and the intellectual from ideas. You know, it's finding our own instruments of connection. And I very much agree with Dostoevsky on this, a famous Russian writer. We must suffer, I think, to understand that, because it's, to use yet another metaphor, it's adversity which kind of hones our blades and sharpens our words. And this suffering, this existential anguish, is sort of the inevitable and necessary cost of realizing each of our life's quests, which I think is the pursuit of love. Because love is sort of the ultimate form of connection, right? And so through connection, understanding. You know, it is love, which is connection at its simplest form, and pure love is understanding. So to understand is to be at peace. So if life's highest calling is agony, then its ultimate goal is peace. And that is problematic in its own way for me. Before that, I just want to draw on, I think it was a Harvard study, it's one of the Ivy Leagues for sure, but they were saying that the happiest people are those who get the most fulfillment out of people, because it's connections. At least that's what I'm getting out of the study. I can't remember where, I read it a long time ago, probably back in college. Sorry, it'd be high school for Americans, they call it high school, not college. It's been quite a while, but that's what I remember quite distinctly from it, and I do agree. In a perfect world, you get your own happiness from in here, right? And some people do, but I think for most of us, you have to get it. It's a bit of a paradox, right? You need external validation to feel validated yourself, or to begin feeling validated yourself. But yeah. But anyways, going back to the dilemma that I was talking about, it raises three distinct problems for me. This pursuit of love, in a way. One, because if I want peace, I need to seek love, and well, I'm not really doing anything in that realm at the moment. Two, it's also a paradox for me, because at the same time, I want to be understood, but I'm afraid of being understood at the same time. I have this terrible habit, and a friend mentioned this to me. Q actually mentioned this to me a while ago. Well, she didn't say it explicitly, but it's been implied in a lot of what we've talked about. I tend to push people away before they get the chance to be close. For a lot of reasons, I'm not going to go into them, but part of it is because I'm, one, afraid of being understood. So I push people away so they never get the chance to understand me. And the third dilemma, I suppose, and I don't say this out of bitterness, I want to be very clear about that, but even if I reconciled this belief, even if I came to terms with this belief that, I need to love, I don't feel like, it feels like the world refuses my love sometimes. I feel like, this is a very paradoxical thing for me to say, again, paradox is a word I'm using so often, but one, I know I can be absolutely ruthless when it comes to making decisions about people and all that, which I think is necessary sometimes. But at the same time, I know I have so much love for the world and for other people, and unfortunately, that world and those people, they're not always willing to receive that love, which is fine, but it's a heavy burden to bear, knowing you have all this love you want to share, but people won't want to take it, they turn their backs. And again, I'm not bitter, it's just the way it is, but it can be quite frustrating because it's such a heavy burden to bear. So there you go, there's my existential dilemma, I suppose, quarter life crisis, if you will. Not only am I petrified at the crossroads of happiness and meaning, but I'm paralyzed at my own incapacity to find my own peace. Yeah, I know the destination I must reach, I just don't know the path I must take. And in my journey in the wilderness, I feel like I've fallen into the darkness. So anyways, long video. That is my existential grappling that has troubled me over the past few days, indeed week and a half, 2 weeks. It's something that has bothered me. It's gotten easier as I've thought about it more and more, but obviously, as no doubt any objective viewer will notice, there are lots of flaws in my logic, and it's just the way I see things at the moment, and I know it won't always be so. I'm hoping it won't always be so, at least. Already just talking about it now, I can think of a few things I can try and do to better myself and just move on. Keep putting one foot right in front of the other, which is all life is really about, I suppose. You might be in agony now, but as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, eventually you'll find peace. Or so you would hope, right? No other choice but forward. That is my existential dilemma. I hope, although I'm sure you will have experienced something along these lines, or will at some point, I hope you never have to feel so lost like I do at the moment. It's hard to articulate just how lost I do feel, but it is troubling. But there is comfort in knowing that it won't always be this way. Right? And I suspect if you relate to this, then if you relate to what I've said, then you'll also relate to this. I feel like I can't lean on other people. I don't know how to ask for help. Partly why I'm doing this video series online, in public, and not a private thing. Not because I'm asking for help, but because it's just a way for me to express myself without asking for help, I suppose. So it's just hard. This is my way of coping, I suppose. Anyways, thank you for watching if you've made it this far. I hope you found some value, or at the very least, I hope you found that you're not alone in some of these feelings that you might be having. We're all in this together, and frankly, I think as long as we know that we're not alone, then the world's a far better place because of that. More empathy is always a fantastic thing, and should never take it for granted. So anyways, no matter where you're in the world, I hope you have a fantastic day, evening, night, morning, brunch. If you're lucky enough to have brunch. I'm white, so I love brunch. No, seriously, all the best, guys. Wishing you the world. Cheers.